Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Rinks and welcome to another edition of Talking DC. A little announcement before we get started. DC Fandom is coming out on August 22nd at the time of this recording, and I'm really excited about it, hearing about the different news about different parts of DC in the multiverse. And in celebration of that, I'm treating this month of however many videos I do, I'm going to dedicate them to DC. If you like talking about DC or listening about DC, you're in luck because the next few videos are just going to be just that. In today's video, I'm going to talk about lanterns. Not just Green Lantern, but the main source of me talking about this video is the new Gold Lantern that's just been unveiled. I'm really excited about the character. I know it's not in like the current timeline of the DC universe, that this is in the distant future with the Legion of Superheroes. But it couldn't hurt but to talk about it, and actually I think there are ways to incorporate that in the current timeline. With this new lantern, it actually kind of sparked my interest with the lanterns again, and maybe kind of give like a rough recap of all the lanterns. And also for the last part of the video, I wanted to do like an open discussion of just fan theory. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. To begin this topic, let's go all the way back to 1940. The first Green Lantern was Alan Scott. He was the original Green Lantern, but not the Green Lantern that we know of now. They actually changed the idea over time, and the Green Lantern that we know of now is Hal Jordan. Alan Scott still plays a pivotal role into the Green Lantern lore. He was, after all, the first one that we were introduced to. And his powers kind of vary differently from the typical Green Lantern that we know of now. I have to mention him that he was, in comic book history, he was the first. Getting into the Green Lantern that we know of now, Hal Jordan, he is the second incarnation of Green Lantern. Well, technically third, if you want to include his predecessor. With Hal Jordan, then they introduced Sinestro. He was a former Green Lantern turned against them, and then he forged his own ring comprised of fear, known as the Yellow Lantern ring. And then these two would wage war against each other for many years in comic books. Until 2007, Sinestro made his own Lantern Corps, comprised of fear. He recruited many different alien races, many different people from all across the universes that love to spread fear, install fear into others. Thus creating the comic book event Sinestro Corps Wars, where the Green Lantern is facing off against the Sinestro Corps. This is one of my favorite comic books I love reading. And I thought it couldn't get any better than that. It does. After that, they started including multiple Lantern Corps, expanding on different colors of the emotional spectrum. Before that, we had the Star Sapphires, but we didn't know that they were their own Lantern Corps until it was established later on. So technically, they were the third Lantern Corps to be exposed, but we didn't know. We only knew of one for now. Then we had the Red Lantern Corps, which comprised of rage and hatred. Then you got Blue, which is hope. Orange, which was greed. You had the Indigo Tribe, which comprised of compassion. Then Black, which was death. And then, of course, White for life. I'm so fascinated by this concept that there are multiple Lantern Corps dealing with different parts of the emotional spectrum, and they had their own deities too, that powers the rings. The Green Lantern Corps, or basically anything dealing with any Lantern Corps, that is something that you can go on forever. There's different ways to explore it. Rather it's dealing with the Green Lantern Corps, which is mostly what they do, but then they go into other Lantern Corps. They're just so complex, they're so dynamic, that I actually favor the other Lantern Corps other than the Green Lanterns. Actually, the Sinestro Corps is my favorite Lantern Corps. And then the Red Lanterns I love too. The Cat, Dexstar, his origin is one of the saddest stories I have ever read, but it's one of my favorites, and I wish that would get more recognition. With DC expanding with all these Lantern Corps, you didn't think that they could expand even more to it, that you figured that they told all of their stories, that there's no more to continue on with. We are continued to be proven wrong. Now that there is a new Lantern, the Gold Lantern. Now, this lantern doesn't exist until later on into the DC universe in the distant future with the Legion of Superheroes. The Gold Lantern is fairly new, so we don't know much about him. What we do know is that this is a different change of pace than what we're used to. The Gold Lanterns are powered by happiness or enormous joy. They're powered by happiness to sum it all up, and I'm interested in by that because prior to that, we never had happiness in the emotional spectrum. We had willpower, we had love, we had hatred, we had life and death, hope, even compassion. Greed got there before happiness. I'm fascinated by this is because, like, why wasn't this discovered before? But you can always write new lanterns or new concepts into any timeline given the right story and circumstances. To me, I think this could be applied to modern time if they did it right. And also, this lantern is very different from the panels that I was reading and the videos and information I was looking up. He can transmute with his lantern ring. I remember, like the picture I'm showing up right now, apparently one person's telling him that to transmute the water or to teleport it, and no other lantern ring can do that. All they can do is project objects to use to fight back. And also for flight too, but I've never seen one that can change something into something else to transmute it. To me, that's a very interesting concept. Not to mention, this lantern is faster than Superboy, which again, when you're dealing with Kryptonians, they're very fast. So there's a lot to go off with this new lantern that we don't know the origin of, and I'm really excited about it. Like, I don't know when or we're gonna get that origin or they're ever gonna explore it. I do know that this opened the floodgates because, in my opinion, you can go further with it. Now we get to the last part of the video that this is the part I've been looking forward to, and this is actually the main focus of my video. What if you were to create more lanterns? And I know a lot of you are like, there's already too many lanterns, but there's never too much of anything. I mean, we have like, I don't know, 10 Bat family members. I'm surely we can add about 5 or 6 more lantern cores with that. But my point is that the Gold Lantern opens the floodgates of possibilities of including more lantern cores. You can transcend the ones that we have, and you can add new ones that have new concepts or even going beyond the concept of the emotional spectrum. A few examples. What if you were to take the Green Lantern Corps and you transcend them into something more? Like, their power is of course willpower. But what if you made it so strong where it made them stubborn? What if you made it into a darker shade of green and you made them stubborn? Maybe call them Emerald Knights. My point is that with the emotional spectrum, I think we can go a bit more. That sometimes it did feel like that it was a bit black and white with the emotions, that some people forget that you only have to feel that one emotion and that one emotion. No, it's like you focus on that one emotion entirely. Like, if you're like strong-willed and you just focus on being strong-willed, but then again, if you're fearful, then you use fear, but you focus on using fear. But what if we were to complex the emotional spectrum, to go beyond that and also add more emotions to it? Because basically the 9 Lantern Corps rings that invoke all these emotions, there are still more emotions out there that you can explore. There's happiness, which we now just got with the Gold Lantern, but what if we dive into sadness, depression? What if we dive into jealousy? You dive into just other emotions as well. And also, not even just emotions, is that with the Gold Lanterns that I got from is that it differ from what they traditionally are. So what if with the different Lantern Corps, if you made any new ones, what if they derived from what the Lantern Corps was? Like, their powers were not just merely using the ring, but also changed the concept of the rings for different powers. They're still lanterns by heart, but their powers vary into depending on what their spectrum deals with. It's something I feel like they should explore more, like take the Red Lantern Corps. What if you were to make them the Ruby Corps, which I don't make it a different shade of red, where maybe it's jealousy or envy, something along those lines, because rage does invoke jealousy. Those two go hand in hand with each other. So what if you made it into a darker red, and then Ruby is more like their name, like the Ruby Corps. They're Red Lanterns that transcend what their powers were, and they were given a ruby ring. And their powers are different, and actually they're stronger, and they just kind of like, they're a faction on their own, and they splintered off from the Red Lanterns. Same thing with Star Sapphires. Like, those could be rose gold into another metal. Those are people who have loved, but they don't love anymore. They actually love themselves more than they love somebody else. Because with the Star Sapphires, their power is to love. But what if you transcend that into rose gold, and then those are lanterns that love themselves? So they are a fraction that splintered off into a different part of the emotion of love. And that's what I'm getting with this, is that what if we explored more into it, the more complexity to the emotional spectrum? And then what if you were to create a new concept? Continuing on, you introduce new concepts like copper or platinum. This is the inspiration for the gold lanterns, is that you can go with that. Maybe platinum could be depression or sadness. You can have other traits, like you can use opal, you can use onyx, you can use emerald, ruby, sapphire. But there's one idea that I think would be good, and this is just my 2 cents out there. I think it would be really cool if they did a lantern corps that were diamond inspired. Use the concept of diamonds. Take their lantern corps, they're probably known as the Diamond Lantern Corps. And these are lanterns who have transitioned in their life. And by transition, I mean, you know the old phrase, diamonds in the rough? Well, to me, like, it would be that they come from an ordinary rock, and that's how you make diamonds. They're ordinary rocks, and then you put enough pressure into them that they turn into diamonds. And that's the concept with the Diamond Lantern Corps, is that they were rocks. They were rough rocks. They had a bad life, but they turned their life around so drastically that they turned them into absolute diamonds. And to me, that would be such a good concept, because like it takes like characters, potential characters that were bad, or they had a rough childhood or a bad life, and then they turn it around and they turn into a diamond, both figuratively and in real life. And to me, this would also introduce, like if DC wanted to do this, they could use this to introduce a transgender character. And to me, that would be a good concept, because that would fit into the Diamond Lantern Corps concept. To finish all this up, is that we have so many different Lantern Corps, and I think there's room for more. Because with the Gold Lantern, to me at least, is that it's a sign of change. That they're willing to change some things up, and if they really open their mind up, like if they think outside the box, they can really come up with some different concepts. Because again, I would not mind if there are different Lantern Corps throughout the universe. I mean, it's a big universe. There's several different planets. There's so many different types of alien races in DC. You can just go off with it. And I think you can explore more Lantern Corps. Actually, the main concept is to basically open the horizon, to basically make the emotional spectrum a bit more complex. Instead of making it more black and white, you can explore different parts of the emotion and actually focus on different parts of that emotion. And that's it. We're done talking about DC. So let's start wrapping up the video. Hit the notification bell to let you know when some more videos would come out. Also, like, subscribe, share. Also, there will be handles down below to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Vero. Until next time, thank you for talking with me.